So much for the slow build. Ohio State pushes the gas pedal and played just about as perfectly as it could have wanted. Yes, they can always get a little bit better, but that's probably the scary thought. This is improvement week. It is Monday. It's the podcast daily, and it is a Zach Boren blitz. He's Zach Boren. I'm Austin Ward. The Buckeyes win 56-0 over Western Michigan on Saturday night. Zach, when you left the Horseshoe, the first thing you thought was what?
What an outstanding night of football. I mean, you got everything you paid for. And I think people were like, oh, man, it's Western Michigan. What to expect? You know, they gave Wisconsin a game the week prior. What are we going to see? That was Ohio State football. I don't care if it was Western Michigan. I don't care if that was an FCS school. Those boys came out and took care of business from the very beginning, and it was just fun. It was fun to see. Everyone was working together, man. Offense, defense, special teams, even though, you know, there weren't as many return yards as week one against Akron. But, God, man, those guys are putting it together. And we talked about last week, week one, with them almost getting uptight when the big plays weren't happening. And you just saw last night, didn't matter if it was methodical, didn't matter if it was a chunk play, didn't matter if it was, the 80-yard pass or 70-yard pass to Jeremiah Smith for a touchdown where he takes it and runs. You saw everything across the board that as an Ohio State fan, as a coach, that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I want to be careful not to overreact because, as you said, it is Western Michigan. It is week two. It doesn't mean that what we saw on Saturday night was not special and not a glimpse at really high potential. But like, if we sat here on Monday last week, Zach, and said, "Hey, this is maybe why week one can be wonky. There's a long layoff. There's things that they can improve on, like all getting comfortable for a bunch of first-time starters." If we're going to take that approach and try and be rational about it, I think not thinking that they're magically everything is done and they're a national title winner after week two should be fair as well. Like, I want to be somewhere in the middle. Like, they showed the improvement, but that is still just the first 2 weeks, and they are going to have to keep getting better. That I'm not trying to diminish or rain on the parade any, but I want to take the same approach this week that I did last week if I can.
Here's what I love about it as a player, and they probably will not admit to it now. Coaches will not admit to it, but I'll admit to it, right? Because of our seat that we're sitting in. When you prepare for a MAC game, when you prepare for a lower level Big Ten game, there's not as much excitement in the locker room. There's not as much kind of juices flowing before the game. We've talked about it on here, and it hasn't really been a while, knock on wood. But when you get into a game like that, it's hard to motivate yourself. You're like, you go out and play an Oregon, a Michigan, a Penn State. You are juiced and you are ready to go. When you have to almost facilitate your own juice within the locker room and build up an opponent for more than what it is, it's tough. And so for this team to come out from the beginning, start fast, do what they were supposed to do, that's all you can ask for. I guarantee you those guys weren't super amped up to play Western Michigan, and they're probably not going to be amped up to play Marshall. We talk about it because to those teams, this is their Super Bowl, which makes some of those games so dangerous. And that's when you saw that in the Urban Meyer area, right? In the Urban Meyer era with Purdue, Iowa, some of those games that Ohio State would get tripped up. The great teams beat teams the way they should. And that's what you saw Saturday night. So I know we don't want to, call them world beaters after this and be like, oh my God, we're here, we're arrived. But for them to go into a game Saturday night against Western Michigan, which is a MAC opponent, and treat them the way they did with giving up less than 100 yards of offense. I'm not sure combined. It's probably close to 650, something like that. I forgot what the exact number was.
Yeah, nearly 700 yards.
700 yards. There you go. So being able to do those things, it's like, I don't know what more you can ask for from a fan standpoint, from a coach's standpoint. There are definitely things to work on, like you said. And this is the time where, Woody Hayes, I believe, used to say, you pat them on the butt when they're down and you kick them in the ass when they're up, right? And so this is one of those days where probably when you go into film, you are a little bit more strict today than you would be, say, you beat Penn State by 10 points or you lose a tough game. It's so, I'm excited for what this team can do. I think they showed glimpses of how much firepower they truly have.
Yeah. 683 was the exact total there. I just double checked.
Split the difference.
There we go. We're right. Yeah, we're right there. We had it surrounded. And again, I don't bring up that stuff to diminish the effort, because Ohio State they checked every box on Saturday night that you could hope to. But I think that just listening to the Buckeyes themselves afterwards, if week one was, an understanding that there's going to be a big improvement, and then the coaching cliche, your biggest leap is coming from week 1 to week 2, and the challenge to get comfortable, that this was the first time through the routine for Will Howard, for Quinshon Judkins. Both of those guys talked about that themselves on Saturday night when they were leaving the Horseshoe, that very different feeling for them. Even as much football as both of those guys have played, they were still, nervous. They were still doing something for the first time at Ohio State. They were in a new offensive system that might have been, I don't know, more apparent for Quinshon Judkins compared to Akron for Western Michigan for him than it was for Will Howard. But that was definitely true. I talked to Will Howard on Tuesday in the buildup about just finding a routine. He has stressed that to me since really the moment that I've met him, how important that is for him to find that consistency with the days that he's watching film, what film he's watching, what the practice schedule is going to be like, when he has class, when he's getting extra throwing time in with the wide receivers. He was doing that all for the first time, and then going through a skull session and a pregame warming. Sometimes I haven't done it. You have, Zach. What the importance of that routine is for these high level athletes. And if there's a change for it, or if you're doing it for the first time, it can throw you out of sorts. And I'm not bringing any of that up to make excuses. I'm only saying that now those two guys, and Austin Saraveld and Tegra Shabola and Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and Arvell Reese, they've all now done this twice, and you can already see the impact that made to go through this for a couple times. That's, I think, why there is excitement for what that can mean moving forward. Doesn't mean that because you beat Western Michigan 56-0, you're done, but it is another brick in the foundation, and they're establishing that this is what the standard is like, and this is what the preparation produces when you get used to it.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, because to this point, it's only going to get tougher, right? It's not like it's getting any easier from here on out. Each week is a different step, and the contest is going to get harder and harder. The expectations are going to get higher and higher. You bring up Will Howard and everything that he has to kind of manage being the quarterback at a place like Ohio State. He could have been at Kansas State and barely beat Tulane, and there not be a big deal at all, right? Yep. For him on this morning. Instead, he's at a place like Ohio State, winning 56-0, and talking to reporters about, hey, we still need to improve. Hey, there's still a lot we can build on. Hey, there's still a lot of things that we need to get more comfortable with. I totally understand that. And especially, you talked on Quinshon Judkins, you talked about Tegra. There's a lot of guys that have not kind of put the steps together during a full football season. And now you're going from everything's amplified, because now you're going from a potentially 15 game season to possibly a 17 game season, and everything is going to get more amped up, because now you might have, guess what, 3 or 4 playoff games. You might have a Big Ten championship game that's going to help you get a bye. There are so many big games that are coming up for this group that you're right. They need to stack them on top of one another. They need to get more comfortable. They need to show growth. That's what great teams do as well. And that's what great players do.
All right. So that's the big picture takeaway from 56-0. Let's narrow the focus down. Silver Bullets, a shutout. That'll probably be fun to talk about on Buckeye Q. It's been 5 years. It was pointed out to me afterwards, 5 years to the day since Ohio State shut out Cincinnati. It's been a long time coming. Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon, Sonny Styles all talking about that after the game. They knew how long it had been. They knew that they hadn't produced a shutout at Ohio State. Once they forced that early missed field goal, it was like, all right, that they dodged that one bullet, that drive, that couple plays that got away, and they were absolutely lights out the rest of the night. Under 100 yards against any opponent That's a real feather in the cap. But what Ohio State really wanted was that 0 on the scoreboard, and they got it.
I thought that only happened in Pee Wee football, let alone Division One college football, right? Man, they're fun to watch. I know everyone gravitates towards the offense side of the football, as they should. I mean, that's kind of where the game of football has went. But to see the silver bullet defense running around, playing downhill, playing as a unit, their gap sound, Chip Knowles was dialing up blitzes, and you can just see how comfortable those guys are in the defense. And we've talked about this for a couple of years now on Buckeye IQ, is that you almost see them, and we talked about game by game over the past 2 years, them getting more comfortable in Jim Knowles' defense. There are some complex things. They like to give different looks, different blitzes. Now you kind of see everyone after being in this defense a couple of years, like, oh man, what this defense can really look like. Man, there are some special guys. You could go position by position and talk about how great those guys are. I know having Cody Simon was huge for this defense. You could see him play last night, playing downhill, stopping the run, coming in pass rushing situations, had a sack. This defense can be really good. Granted, wasn't a huge test. Akron wasn't a huge test. Western Michigan isn't. Marshall probably really isn't either. But guess what? Michigan State more than likely is going to be undefeated here in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And then after that, guess what? You got Iowa, Oregon, and the stretch of the Big Ten is coming at you. So the defense continually needs to keep on the same page, grow, be able to show different looks. And this is one to put kind of the feather in the cap and say, hey, this is what we're building on.
Feels too early in the season for me to be getting you going about the officiating. I don't understand. I don't understand.
Stop it. This is the biggest issue in, I'm going to say all of sports, but especially college sports. And if you want to talk, or college football, and you want to talk about the targeting call last night, you have guys coming downhill, running to the sideline, and a Western Michigan running back ducks his head to put contact into them. How are you supposed to hit him? There is no way you can hit this dude. The target is so minute, and you're playing at full speed. Like, yeah, guess what? Some guy, in New York or wherever they're doing it out of now, with some clicker doing it at literally slow speed that my grandpa can now understand the football game, right? It's like, of course that you can say that's targeting. Play it in real time and look at what the running back's doing. Look at the full picture. Was their intent to target him? Hell no. No. The dude was running with the football and had been for a while. Like, the dude knew contact was coming, and hell, he was trying to throw contact into Caleb Downs and Denzel Burke. Dude, we could do a whole podcast on this, and there are so many issues with this. If you want to call that targeting, it's BS. You need to do some kind of system that we talked about where there's an aggressive targeting and like a non-aggressive targeting. Kind of works like the yellow card, red card system in soccer. You need to do that type of thing. After a certain amount of games, your yellow card targeting things come off the books, and it's like, you cannot continue to take young men out of football games. If this wasn't Western Michigan and call it, this is Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, the list goes on, that's complete BS.
Yeah. Especially one, Zach, where no official on the field threw a targeting flag when it happened live, and everyone else just went back to the line of scrimmage. They'd called a penalty on Western Michigan. Like, nobody on the field was like, you know what, that was definitely targeting. And
those guys have the front row seat. They can see the intent. They know when a guy is targeting someone. It's like they are there. They see it live. They know what it's like. I know when you're on the field, guess what? If a dude's lining you up, you know about it. Like, you can feel it on the field. So they're not going to throw a flag. They didn't see anything intentionally wrong with it. Like, why are you going to buzz in and be like, oh, yeah, I'm watching in slow motion. Oh, the little circle on the top of his cap is making contact with his head, like targeting. It's BS.
I had to get you worked up about it. We hadn't talked about the officiating in 9 months, so we had to get back to that.
We could also talk about like the G. Scott holding call on Quinshon Judkins' long run. Now, granted, G. Scott needs to be a lot better, but that's a ticky-tack holding penalty. That's complete. I didn't agree with that one. What was the total? Because at one point, I think Ohio State had like 7 penalties. The Western Michigan had 0. Like, and I'm sitting there. I don't know what the final count was, but it was super lopsided at one point.
Let's see if I can get that for you here in the box score. I don't know. It's hidden. The officials don't want us to know, Zach.
Of course.
They don't want you to. Oh, here
it was way lopsided, whatever it was.
Yeah, 1 penalty for 2 yards on Western Michigan and 6 for 58 on the Buckeyes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so there you go. At one point, it was 6 penalties to none. I'm like, what are we doing?
They had to just toss one in there for a couple of yards just to make it balance out, which they didn't do. Offensively, you mentioned Will Howard getting comfortable doing things better. He talked after the game. Here's what I really liked. He missed a throw to Jeremiah Smith. We all saw it. We've all talked about the deep ball. He comes right to the bench. He's apologetic. He's taking ownership. He gets on the headset, talks to Chip Kelly. They hash it out. Yep, missed it. Jeremiah Smith's also really fast. It's going to be hard. You might miss some throws. No game's going to be perfect. And then on the next drive, an absolute dime into coverage, play action throw out to Emeka Egbuka. Immediate bounce back. I think when you've talked about this a lot, Zach, so like you wanted to feel the quarterback. You wanted to, and have that alpha mentality. Even when Will Howard made a quote unquote mistake by missing a throw, I never felt like there was any panic from Ohio State that he wasn't going to bounce back from that and have a big performance. He started 10 for 10. So that was encouraging. Ohio State came out and threw it 4 times in a row to start that first drive. You could tell that was something that Chip Kelly wanted to get accomplished, and Will Howard was building that confidence. You don't hit every single throw that you make, and I think it's telling. I mentioned this with Jeremiah Smith a week ago. It was the way he responded to the drop early that tells you what kind of mentality he has and where the potential truly lies to handle that adversity. I think that's even in Western Michigan, even in a game where most everything else was going just about as well as Will Howard could want. I think it was the response to one miss that I left on Saturday night thinking, yep, that was pretty good.
You and I have talked about this. Great teams have an absolute dog at quarterback and middle linebacker. They are teams that alpha dog mentality is ingrained in that person who plays that position, gets everyone on the same page, is that true leader. And you're seeing that in Will Howard. And I think each practice, each week, each game goes by, you're seeing him get more and more comfortable in that role and kind of him be able to come out to who he truly is. Yes, he missed the deep ball. I would also argue this, the last 3-4 years at Kansas State, he never had a wide receiver like Jeremiah Smith, probably never had a wide receiver like any of the wide receivers that he's throwing to, right? So can I make an excuse that he's not used to leading a receiver that much down the field? Yes, for sure. Now, is that on him to figure out quickly? Yes, but when you're so accustomed to throwing a ball a certain way after 4 years and after that many reps, it takes you a lot of reps, and especially game reps, to be able to change your ways, the way you're throwing a football. And so that's going to be a big thing. I can guarantee you Will Howard on this bye week, following week, they are going to work on the deep ball. And it's just a timing standpoint. It's not an arm strength standpoint. It's purely, hey, bullets are flying. Will Howard probably is like, I don't want to lead him too much and overthrow him. Guess what? Those guys are like, let me run and let me go get it. So it's strictly timing from that standpoint. But yes, you are right. We've seen some quarterbacks in the past, especially last year, that they missed that throw and they duck their head and don't say anything and kind of pout. And now this year, guess what? Will Howard's owning it. My bad. It's on me. We're going to get the next one. That's what you want. And that's truly who Will Howard is. I also love the game plan. Last week it almost seemed like they were trying to keep Will Howard in the pocket a lot, also try and run in between the tackles. Yesterday, they were doing so much RPO, which Will Howard's great at. They were moving the pocket, getting them out and about, throwing on the run. They were also moving the line of scrimmage on the run game, getting the big guys moving up front, letting Travion and Quinshon kind of get those holes on. It's it's kind of like a wide zone play, and you're just letting those guys get the ball in their hands and read it in front of them and attack it downhill. And love the game plan. You could see the difference from week 1 to week 2. And I think you're going to continue to see kind of a changing game plan as it goes on until they get into some of those big games. But they're going to cater to Will Howard and what those wide receivers and running backs can do.
Yeah, I think they found a bunch of things that fit this personnel in a hurry. It's encouraging and it's exciting for Ohio State because, as we mentioned, they've only played 2 games. They're still going to have opportunities to get better, play better, be cleaner, more efficient, more explosive. They already showed they could do that from week 1 to week 2. So in our second,
can we also talk about how fast Jeremiah Smith was? I would love to know what he tracked at, because I know that's like a big metric nowadays, right?
Yeah.
How fast each player is on the field and their top end speed. I want to know what he topped out at on that. I think it was a 70-yard touchdown run, whatever it was, or catch. But it was seeing it in I didn't watch it on TV. I was at the game. Seeing it in person, it's kind of one of those jaw-dropping things where you're like, oh my God, I've never been to an Olympics, but watching like a 100-meter race where they start off, they get out of the blocks, and they almost get faster as it goes on. Like, that's what Jeremiah Smith did.
All right, you gave me a mission for reporting this week. I will do everything I possibly can to get that information on the miles per hour. And what you said, Zach, being there to see it live was bonkers, because he took that. It was just like a stop route, and he was standing in one place at a standstill, not in starting blocks like the Olympics.
Right.
And then he ran away from still Division I athletes. He went 0 to whatever it was, 24 miles an hour in the snap of a finger. It was, and ran away from everyone on the field. I don't know that I've ever seen that exact situation play out. My jaw was on the floor in the press box. So it was crazy.
Yeah, in all my years of playing football, obviously in the off season and things like that, we during training, you amp each other up, and I've seen some dudes fly in a 40-yard dash. Coach Mick used to be big with, winter training, and then towards the end of winter, hey, listen, let's see what really happens. Get yourself on a 40-yard or on the 40-yard dash, and let's time you. Let's see what happens. You see those things in controlled environments. I have never seen anything like that in a real game. like I've never seen that. Like, you've seen some fast dudes, but a lot of times it's, hey, listen, running back, it gets it on a wide zone, hits it kind of like we kind of saw Quinshawn on it, right on the long on the option play that he took and got called back. But at that point, he's got momentum. And so he's coming downhill. And so he looks fast because a lot of guys taking pursuit angles. Some guys, get stuck with their feet in the ground, got to turn and run. So of course you're going to make them look slow. I've never seen someone at a complete standstill, like you said. Defenders were already running at him on a pursuit angle. He turns and literally goes straight down the field and starts pulling away from dudes that already had momentum.
It was crazy. Does that mean that Jeremiah Smith is in the Boren 3 and out as we wrap up the show? The 3 best players from the game?
He is. And he's number 3, right? Number 3.
Okay.
And I absolutely love what Jeremiah Smith is able to do. God, he's fun to watch. He very easily could have had another touchdown on that long pass that we're talking about from Will Howard. That's another time where he showed his speed. It's kind of that, you saw that route become such a big thing under CJ Stroud, under Justin Fields, kind of that cross country type of shot that the quarterback will take from the slot. Jeremiah Smith lined up in a shot, and he just put his head down and ran. And I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And he could have had even more damage, but 5 receptions, I think 118 yards, something like that. He played very well.
He's pretty good. You can't ask for much more from the first 2 games of your career than what Jeremiah Smith has given Ohio State.
I know. I'm throwing my stats at you. I think it's 5 for 118.
Missed him by 1. 5 for 119.
Oh, man.
69 yards after catch.
There you go. So
pretty good stuff there.
On fire. Number 2's got to be Quinshawn Judkins, man. I have been so excited for what I think he can bring to this Ohio State offense. I still think the world of Trey, but I think Quinshawn brings you more of that physical aspect in between the tackles when you need it. The tough short yardage that we've struggled with the past couple of years. And then you see him get out in space on Saturday night as well and be able to break a couple tackles, make people miss, and just go. And
Yeah.
man, is he special. I think he got gypped on his touchdown run. He should have had, 10 for 200 basically, because I
Right.
think he had or he had 9 for 100 and something, right? So
108.
108, there you go. So yeah, he would have had 10 for 200, which would have been one hell of a showing. But yeah, man, Quinshawn Judkins, I'm so excited. I think they're going to continue to get him more and more involved in this offense. You saw it last night. He was way more involved than he was against Akron. And I think he's starting to get more comfortable as well. And you even saw him afterwards talking to the media like, hey, listen, I love where this is going. I'm happy sharing the football. But you can just feel that confidence starting to build in him. Like, hey, listen, I'm starting to make my own name here now. Number one's got to go to the entire defense. And I know we're cheating the system here, but
No, that's fine.
Buckeye leaf to the entire defense here. Less than 100 yards. I mean, we could go on and on. Less than 100 yards. I think 5 tackle for losses, 6 tackle for losses, something like that. Playing downhill, running to the football, silver bullet defense. And it goes, I will say this till I'm blue in the face. People want to say it's Western Michigan, it's a MAC team, you should be dominating them. Less than 100 yards of offense in a Division I football game is unheard of. And you pitch a shutout. Like, people don't realize how hard that is. And for them to do that in front of a home crowd, man, on a night atmosphere, those guys, you can see they were feeding off of it. The list goes on and on. I love the way the front seven's playing. My God, man, BIA is back. Those dudes are so good. Caleb Downs didn't flash as much week 1 as we wanted to, but it was like last night, you just felt him. I think he was a leading tackler. It was only 4 tackles, but there was that play, I believe, in the third quarter where he came from like 15 yards from depth and literally on just flying and made the play at the line of scrimmage. You can just feel it. You can feel the confidence if you're there in person. Those guys are playing with swagger, which as a defense, man, that's dangerous. Those guys are feeling good. They're confident. They're ready to play.
Yeah, I felt that as well, just with Cody Simon in pregame. It's like, I think Ohio State is really glad to have its leader, its Blocko, its captain back there at middle linebacker. Made me think, it's time for a Buckeye Q breakdown at middle linebacker again.
I love it, man. I also, I thought Sonny played better as well, and not to keep on going, but I thought Sonny played better as well. But their most dangerous duo might be when Cody Simon and Arvell Reese are in there. And you put Arvell at the wheel, man. It goes back. I said it last week. He has a nose for the football. And that is literally the best compliment you can get, especially for someone playing the linebacker position.
It'll give us plenty to talk about as we roll along here. It is improvement week. That's what Ohio State is calling off week number 1. We'll have full coverage coming out of 56-0 win over Western Michigan, not just here on the podcast daily, but we'll have Buckeye Q. We'll have the live show at Roosters. We'll have everything else all week long on the podcast, but it's great to get it rolling with Zach Boren with a little Boren Blitz. He is Zach. I am Austin. Thanks again for joining us. We'll talk to you later.